Right. And let's take a look at this, because a lot of these things deal with local government aid and making an area better by throwing money at it and allowing us to be able to do these projects. If I was to give you, Andrew, $10, say I'm the taxpayer, you're the state of Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
And I give you $10, then you give back to, I'll be the city of Crystal this time, you give back to me $6 or $7. Well, now I have $6 or $7 to spend when I should have had 10, but the $3 to $4 got eaten up in administrative fees by people who decide this is how much this area should get, this is how much this area should get.
And there's studies and there are things like that too.
So we've got people like Mayor Bowman who get elected to Dayton Special Council to figure out something with LGA because LGA is lower and lower every year. Well, yes, it should be. There should be no LGA. And this is, I hesitate to say this, the taxes locally need to be higher, but only when they have lowered the state taxes by the amount that the city sends them through property taxes.
And we should say, too, local government aid, I'm sure you've heard that term, LGA. It's thrown around all the time.
Yeah.
The original conception of what LGA was not the worst idea in the world. It was to stay, I think it was 1970, the Minnesota Miracle, early 70s, I think, was to say, okay, whatever community you live in, you should have an expectation of police protection, fire protection, water, and sewage. 4 things. That was what LGA's conception was. Well, there's cities getting LGA that are building dog parks, they have pools, they have hockey rinks, they have things that are they might be nice to have. Somebody could argue they add value if, however you determine value. But how can you build those things and then turn around and say you don't have money for police? But you see, and that's, I think, the big thing with LGA is we need some real scrutiny on who is getting this money. Not just changing the formula, not just throwing more money at it, because you know what these committees come up with. They come up with the status quo standard things to do. Well, there's just not enough money. Well, they'll peck around the edges and do things like that. And there are some bills right now I got it somewhere, in the legislature to deal with LGA and to deal with local taxes. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. There's a few that I don't. Right now, the state of Minnesota has they really have the clamps on local governments doing sales taxes and payroll taxes. There are local League of Minnesota Cities wants to tax sales and payrolls. Well, there's a bill right now, House File 1777, that will allow them to do that.
Not a good idea.
No, because once these taxes come in, we all know they never go away.
No.
And they start real low. They start real low, and then all they do is grow and grow and grow as to what cities want to do. Now, you might say, well, that's local control. And you'll hear some people make that argument. But the problem with that is that, the first Minnesota sales tax was in 1967. It was 1.25%. Okay, what is it now? 7?
Probably
even
higher
I
than
think
that.
in Hennepin County it's even more.
7 point something, 8 point something, and that's a lot when you figure where we came from, and we did just fine before we had it at all.
Yeah, I know. we couldn't survive without a sales tax. But that's my worry, is that a tax like that will start at 1%. And they'll tell you it's a latte a day. They'll tell you it's money you can find in your couch cushions. And then pretty soon it's 2%. Then they want to fund this. Then they want to fund that. And it will just never end. Another bill, House Bill 1911, brings back levy limits. And brings back, now again, this bill sounds good. It brings back saying that property taxes need to be subject to voter approval, which I think is a good idea. But should it be my question should it be a top-down policy?
Never.
Or not?
No, I mean, each city should figure out, here's what we need, so let's go to our people and see if we can get it. Not, hey, here's what we think that your cities might be able to handle, and then we'll handle it from there. No, Again, anytime you go top down, you're going to have people who are further removed from the problem trying to figure out what's best for you. What's best for you? Only you know that. And you can't have somebody 2, 3 steps up the ladder telling you that this is what's best for you. It's the same thing that happens with the top-down structure from Washington when we get edicts from the Department of Urban Housing and Development
Yeah,
or the
unelected people,
transportation or the Met Council. Yeah. These people tell us what's best for our area, and only we know that.
Well, and I tell you something too. Something about like the levy limits. We had levy limits previously. It was the end of a budget deal in, I can't remember what year, 2007, 2008, that there were levy limits placed on what a local government could levy. Well, the problem with that, and again, that sounds great, but the problem is what the local governments do is they will find a loophole, number one, because there were about 10 exceptions, if I remember the law right, and they'll also push responsibility off on somebody else and say, well, it's not our fault, it's the state's fault. You know, and they won't take any accountability for what happens within a city. It removes, it hamstrings who you're voting for. You know, you may want to change something in a city, but the levy limits are in place so that you can't.
Yeah. Well, how many times have, like you or I, gone to the city and they've told us, well, you know, we really didn't get the money we wanted from the state and we weren't able to really fix this the way we wanted to. It does. It takes the accountability away.
Right. And there may be some truth to that, too.
Yeah, well, you make people accountable when you make them, you know, the buck stops with them. You didn't do it? Well, you're the one who set the levy limit. You know, you're the one who asked the voters for this amount of money. We need to keep people accountable.
And I think the whole thing of defining what is a need and what is a want. You know, like I go back to the original conception of local government aid. Police, fire, and how many police and fire do we need? Not, well, this is what we've always had, so, or this is what the union wants. We've got to get away from that too. It's got to be, it has to be the police protection with the taxpayer in mind. And the thing that worries me is we live in an area that is what planners would call fully developed. Crystal's not going to have 40,000 people in it 5 years from now.
No.
So we've got a couple choices with we either take control of our expenses, we either dump the cost stuff onto the locals, we either reform government, or we do some of all three.
Right.
Those are our options. And it seems like we have a government that's reluctant to sort of tackle that.
Yeah, and it's real easy to not tackle those things and fix those problems when you can blame the boogeyman of the state because you don't have the resources that you quote unquote need. And I'll tell you, Frisbee golf is really fun, but it's not a need. And I'm sure that there are people locally that would put in for the buckets and the, you know, to have one built in the park. I mean, you don't have to have government paying for this. You don't have to.
Why can't a private entity do that?
Yeah, same with a dog park.
Same with a pool.
Yeah.
Why does the city have to run it? I mean, cities like Crystal and New Hope have been losing money on pools for so long. When do we reach the conclusion they don't know what the hell they're doing? I mean, I don't know. Are we supposed to just endlessly subsidize that? And that's not a need. Again, you know, Crystal Pool, I swam in it, got chlorine in my eyes all throughout my youth. But I mean, we have to make choices between, if it comes down to it, the need versus want. And at some point, we're going to have to make those choices. And at some point, you know, we're just going to collapse under our own weight.
Well, I mean, look at the trend nationally. I mean, we look at the value of our money. We look at the debt load nationally. We look at our funded and unfunded liabilities. And we're not
Do we have to look at them?
Well, we're not going to be able to keep paying these things because we're just going to run out of money at some point. And it all sounds great and good and would love to do it all, but we can't do it all. And so that's when it comes to us and say, well, what can we do? We've got to plant our own gardens. We've got to be able to run our own business out of our home to make extra money. I mean, these are things that we can do, but these things are severely limited by government as well. And so these bills that they're passing in, and some of them, like you say, are decent, but I don't think they go far enough.